let's start with the GDS2 screen. Now, the technician who was looking at this, he didn't want to work on it, which I understand. Um, and I only had a little bit of time, so I told him, I said, look, let me just grab the data and I'll look at it later and give you a phone call. Now, the cool thing with GDS2 is anything you do is saved without you having to do anything. And it's also easy to share it. So this is what I did. Now, this is my screen here, but this is what I did. I launched GDS2 on his computer. I went to review stored data. And so here's the Verano, which I imported. But so here's what he would have had to do from here. And it's kind of dumb, but it says edit. So you pick edit, and then you find the car that you want to send the information on. So here it is here. I sent this file to myself by using the email function, and then I just plug in my email here, send it to me, and it's going to be emailed as attachments.piz, which is kind of dumb, but you have to rename it to attachments.zip, and then you have to unzip it. And once you unzip it, then inside of it, it's going to be called sessions.piz, P-I-Z, and then you're going to need to rename it sessions.zip. And then from there, I'm just going to cancel this. And then from there, you open up your, we're done with this. So, and then from there, to get the file into your computer, you just simply go to import session, and then you're going to locate the sessions. Here we go, the sessions file here. So, long way to go about things, but to email, it's kind of weird, but that's the way it is. All right, so now I have the file. And so if you look on top here, these are all the vehicles. And the vehicle that we're talking about here is this 2013 Verano. And so that's the vehicle. On the bottom here is all the things that he did. And so the first thing that he did was on the bottom. It was a vehicle DTC info. Then he looked at the oxygen sensors and such. So he didn't do anything to have this here. He just did it. And now I'm in my office and I can look at his data. So let's do that. Go to vehicle data. Let's review this, see what he has. And sometimes you got to move the little scroller here for stuff to show up. There we go. All right, so we had, this is a vehicle-wide scan. And so the first two codes are for the engine control module. We'll look into those a little more in a minute. Then we have a body control module with a U0168, lost communication with the keyless control engine, the keyless entry control module. And then we have the EBCM saying we have lost communication with the ECM. And he's got a right side object, let's see, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, right side object detection control module. It's setting a code for the electronic control unit software, which is kind of interesting. And let's look at it here. VIN not programmed. So the complaint, as we mentioned earlier, had nothing to do with a lot of the stuff. The guy is driving up the Cajon Pass, hammering it pretty hard, and then he gets the StabiliTrak message in the dashboard. So let's go back and look at some other stuff. All right, so just going by what he did here, the next thing he did, he looked at the oxygen sensors, and let's review that. This is how the screen first loads. Let's look at the data display. Here's all the PIDs. Saves them all for you. Now, over here in the bottom right, where I'm moving my cursor around, it says 16.04. Now, that means that the whole capture is 16 seconds long, which is not much. So I don't even know why he clicked on the button, but I mean, if you gotta click on the button, do it for more than 16 seconds, but that's what he did. So let's do this. Let's lock a few PIDs. And let's look at a line graph. All right, in blue in the middle, we have the loop status. So you can see it first from 1 to 5 seconds or so, 1 to 5.5 seconds, we were in open loop. The red trace is one of the, let's see, the red trace is, this is nuts the way you have to do this. All right, so the red trace is the downstream O2 sensor, and the green trace is the upstream sensor. And notice we got something weird going on with that upstream sensor, in that it is way up at about 1 volt or so. But we don't know a whole lot more what's going on. That might be normal. You know, I mean, I'm not sure. I think you may have just fired it up. But anyway, so a point here is 16 seconds is not enough for what he's got here to do anything with. So this is worthless. So let's go back, see what else he's got. And so what I tell the guys, if you have GDS2 and you think you might need help, or if you think you might need to go back sometime and look at your data, pull up the screen and at least let some time pass. If 16 seconds is ridiculous. What are you going to learn from that? All right, so let's go to the next one he did. And he evidently he exited and he went right back into the same thing. And notice here we have 7 seconds. Now, what's he doing here? I don't know, but it's not enough time for me to worry about. So I'm going to just go back. So what I'm doing here is just looking through what he did to try to find something useful. And so his next thing he did is he went to the diagnostic trouble codes for the ECM. And again, we have to move this cursor until they show up. There we go. All right, so we have the same 2 codes we saw before. So let's go back for a minute because I want to see if he did something. Yes, he did. That's good. Freeze frames. All right, so that was just the code check, but now we're going to look at the freeze frame and failure records. Now, the original complaint said nothing of the mill coming on. So now we're looking here, and if you look at the top here, notice we don't have a freeze frame. If the mill came on, we would have a freeze frame, but we don't because it never came on. We've got 2 failure records. Okay, these are type B codes, and they failed once, but not 2 times consecutively. So let's look at what he's got here. For the PO137, here's our data. The distance since last malfunction. I'm going to rip that light clock off my wall. All right, so the distance since first malfunction, 2,413 miles. Remember that number. Distance since last malfunction, same distance. We have our ignition cycles with malfunction since first malfunction 1, and ignition cycles without completed test. So this happened 2,400 miles ago, and it looks like that's the time the guy complained about. What do we have here? Anything else? Our fuel trim, pretty normal. Fuel pressure sensor, that's going to be the supply pressure. It's the GDI engine. Not sure why they're giving you supply pressure, but that's all you get. All right, so let's look at the failure record for the PO300. And this mileage here, if you look, is 2406. And what was it before? 2413. So this actually set first, just a few miles. So it's surely it's the same fault, just being stored as a code just a short time later. So this happened quite a while ago, and it happened one time. So both codes happened one time, and so it's not looking good for figuring out what's going on. And our fuel control loop status is open, so we're not going to get any trim, except for long term. Long term is going to be there in open loop. Nothing really shouting out at us here, other than we have this code. So let's go back and see what else he's got to work with. data display and diagnostic trouble codes. I already saw the codes. So here's data display. All right, now here's a great example of why I like to use scan share. I will take these captures, and if you want to export this to scan share, notice down here it's 104 seconds. That's a pretty good amount of time. You just hit this disk here, and then you just save it as it saves it as a CSV file. Now it's a special kind of CSV file, and you save that, and then you're going to go to scan share and upload it as a GDS2 file. All right, so I've done that, and so this is pretty worthless to me. I mean, I guess it's not bad, but so you can't see very many PIDs on this at a time. You can go to data display, see a few more. Let's move our cursor. And so, I don't know, I don't find that real helpful. You can pick a few PIDs. Let's just pick a few. 1, 2, 3. Go to line graph and it puts them all together. I think that's kind of messy. But the graphical display is really kind of poor, and the way to configure it is really nuts. Here, let's find a PID that's doing some. Oh, there we go. All right, so we got this guy makes them wider, this guy makes them narrower, but sometimes you can't put the whole capture on the screen. In this case, you can. So this is pretty Mickey Mouse. All right, so we have saved this to scan share. And we're going to go back and look at it. Oh, you know what? I should tell you before we do that. He only has the one PID list, so that's all we got to work with. But I want you to notice right here, the data list it's kind of hard to read. Maybe I can make that bigger. Nope, I can't make it bigger. The data list is the misfire data. Now, I wish he would have gotten other data PID lists instead of just this one, and instead of just 12 or whatever seconds of the other data. But this is all we have to work with, and so the point here is we want to see what we got, what we can know from what we got, and move on. So with that, we're going to end this video, and the next video we'll pick up with the scan share stuff.